went there to get Osama bin Laden. And we have now gotten Osama bin Laden. I think that takes a lot of the pressure away, or a lot of the punch away from the argument that it would look like we walked away.
Well, Osama bin Laden's death giving new momentum, at least rhetorically, for the call for U.S. troop withdrawal from Afghanistan. The U.S. invaded the country, of course, nearly a decade ago in what has now become America's longest war ever. Troop reductions are set to begin in a couple months, but no one is giving any specific numbers, and critics say that is not good enough. They want a true restructuring, if not outright withdrawal. Our specialist today, Marine Corporal Jake Diliberto. He's a veteran of both the Iraq and Afghan wars. He is also co-founder of the group Veterans for Rethinking Afghanistan and is currently petitioning to begin swift troop withdrawals from Afghanistan. Karen, Susan, and Jimmy do remain with us. And Corporal, what's your argument?
Well, Dylan, again, thanks for having me on the program. Basically, the central argument in recognizing is that the war on terror that we started in 2001 was a war against people that were trying to attack us here in the United States. That is al-Qaeda. That is al-Qaeda and its families. That has nothing to do with Afghanistan. If you look at what's taking place in Afghanistan, we've got a corrupt government that's shaking hundreds of billions of dollars away from the American people, and there's nothing to fix that unless we stop pumping money into Afghanistan and to make an appropriate step to bring our troops home. The other thing about this is that we need to train the Afghan army so we can do a lot with a lot less. We can leave about 17 to 19,000 troops to train the Afghan army, and we can use precision, international and legal counter-terrorist efforts to root out al-Qaeda and its families, like we saw in Pakistan. If we don't use this opportunity, in my opinion, to begin the withdrawal of our troops, then we'll be stuck in a quagmire that's going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars for several years to come.
Sounds rational to me, James.
Sounds very rational. Jake, I have a question. So today we had Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah, and Dick Lugar, who's a senator from Indiana. Both are smart men. Both have said, get out of Afghanistan. Both Republicans, by the way. I agree with them. 100,000 troops on the ground. You just said it. Why do we need them there when intelligence can do the job? I guess the question is, we know that intelligence got Osama bin Laden. It wasn't, 10,000 troops that went in and stormed a, quote, mansion, which if that's a mansion, by the way, I wouldn't want to live in it. No. But I guess my question is is intelligence enough? Is that enough for us to continue to fight al-Qaeda abroad and in the United States?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's extremely prescient for this time. It is enough. In fact, it's more than enough. We have learned more from local Muslims and local people inside of Yemen and Libya and Pakistan and Afghanistan who are basically not in favor of al-Qaeda or al-Qaeda and its families. Muslims in general just simply are simple people who want to live in their villages and not be bothered. The problem you have when you send 100,000 troops into an environment and you wage some sort of war, even if it's a delicate war like counterinsurgency, innocent people end up being killed. And when innocent people end up being killed, they end up joining the insurgency, joining anti-American sentiment. And the longer and this is what I've been trying to say for the longest time, the longer we do counterinsurgency in Afghanistan is the more that we destabilize Pakistan and create a movement within Pakistan that is anti-American and wants to bring the fight here again. It makes al-Qaeda grow. It doesn't defeat it. If you want to defeat al-Qaeda and defend our borders, you use precision and intelligence. You use a scalpel, not a hammer.
At the end of the day, how do you protect from the fact, as Brett McGurk pointed out at the beginning of this show, a long history in America of being present and allied, as we were with Pakistan up until 1989 when we were trying to get Russia out of Afghanistan, only to abandon them. And that Brett asserts that basically we have a long history with not just Pakistan. You saw it with Mubarak when in Egypt. We're with the guy for 30 years. All of a sudden it gets hot in the kitchen and we're saying, you know what, you got to go. How do we restructure our engagement in the Middle East without validating the Pakistani narrative that you can't trust the Americans because they're there for you one day and the next day you're high and dry?
Dylan, this is an incredible point, and we really need, in the national security apparatus inside of Washington here, with this debate needs to really reemerge. And we need a 21st century foreign policy that doesn't bring the United States of backing up corrupt dictators like Mubarak or Mubarak before or Zardari or any of these guys. The problem with Pakistan, I mean, I was in Afghanistan, 9 months ago, and I was with Afghan leaders, I was with Afghan diplomats, etc., and they knew all along where where bin Laden was at. They told me 9 months ago that bin Laden is on the border of Pakistan outside of Islamabad. The problem of Pakistan is that the Pakistani military, in many ways, is controlling the population. And the longer as we support the Pakistani military, we're going to continue having these problems of safe havens. So we can do a lot with diplomacy. We can do a lot with bringing in the international community together and making a new 21st century policy arrangement that doesn't make us permanently in bed with dictatorships that end up hurting people and democracy.
Corporal, if people want to support your efforts publicly or in the petition, how do they do it?
You go to rethinkafghanistan.com. We have a petition that calls for the withdrawal of troops. And also at Rethink Afghanistan, we produced a calculator that shows how much wasteful dollars were spent in Afghanistan over the last year. And it shows a lot. So go to rethinkafghanistan.com, sign the petition, put it on YouTube, tweet it, bring it, pass it on to your friends. And we really need to encourage our elected officials here in the United States to have a new 21st century policy.